mystery of one of the biggest crypto heists of all time, one that had kind of become legendary in the crypto world, the 2012 hack of the Silk Road, which was a dark web site where people were exchanging bitcoins in those years for drugs, guns, pornography, and other things in the dark web.
What if the biggest Bitcoin whale out there, the real mega holder, wasn't some shadowy tech billionaire, but the United States government itself? And what if Uncle Sam suddenly decided to flip the script, transforming his quietly gathered crypto fortune from seized criminal loot into a cornerstone of America's financial future? Forget what you thought you knew. The US government's once hidden Bitcoin dealings are no longer just whispers in court dockets. They're now front and center, revealing a massive shift towards creating a strategic reserve, a stash of digital gold that could shake up global financial power. And believe me, this isn't just talk, it's a calculated move. And the fallout, well, it's massive.
The United States Secret Service protecting the president is not the sole purpose. The agency's also cracking down on crypto fraud. From domestic scams to international crime rings, the Secret Service reports fraudsters are buying and selling millions of dollars in illegal digital assets.
Chapter 1. The genesis of the Hoard, from criminals to coffers. For a long time, the US government was kind of an accidental Bitcoin whale. Seriously. It wasn't because they were super smart early investors or had some grand plan, not at first anyway. Nope, their crypto piggy bank started filling up thanks to crooks. The main way this happened? Seizing assets from federal criminal and civil cases. Remember Silk Road, that online black market swimming in Bitcoin? When law enforcement agencies like the Department of Justice and the FBI shut down places like that, they didn't just slap on handcuffs, they grabbed the digital cash too. So agencies like the US Marshals Service got stuck managing all this seized crypto. For ages, their game plan was pretty simple. Hold it for a bit, then sell it off. Usually this meant public auctions, selling Bitcoin in chunks to whoever bid highest. Sometimes these sales were public, sometimes not so much, which made it hard to know exactly how much Bitcoin the government really had or what they planned to do with it. It was mostly a reactive approach. Bitcoin was just another seized item to get rid of. Use the money for victims or more police work, not some strategic treasure to be hoarded. Back then, the strategy felt pretty thrown together. Each bust was its own thing, and dealing with the Bitcoin afterwards felt more like paperwork than a big brain move. You didn't hear government folks talking much about Bitcoin's potential, other than how criminals were using it. It was all about busting bad guys and getting money back. Sure, they grabbed a lot over time, building up a decent stash, but the main plan always seemed to be turn it back into regular dollars. The thought of Uncle Sam purposely hodling Bitcoin, holding on for dear life like crypto fans do, seemed crazy to most people. So they were quietly stacking Bitcoin, not as part of some grand plan, but just as a side effect of policing the internet. But this quiet, almost accidental pile of digital cash was setting the stage for something huge, a secret quietly growing deep within the government. Chapter 2, The Exposed Moment, the strategic pivot of 2025. And then, bam, everything changed. 2025 wasn't just another year. It kicked off a whole new chapter for the US government and Bitcoin. All those rumors and bits of news about the government's growing Bitcoin stash, they suddenly became crystal clear with one big, almost shocking move. On March 6, 2025, the then President Trump signed a game-changing executive order. This wasn't your typical government paperwork. It was a loud and clear statement, a massive U-turn in national policy. This order officially created the United States Strategic Bitcoin Reserve, and right along with it, the United States Digital Asset Stockpile. This executive order, that was the exposed moment we're talking about. It tore away all the mystery and showed everyone a new, intentional game plan. The main point was obvious. The US government wasn't just going to auction off its Bitcoin anymore. Instead, Bitcoin was now a strategic national asset, just like how we have reserves of gold or oil. The wording of the order said a lot. It recognized Bitcoin's key features: that limited supply of 21 million coins, its strong security, and its growing rep as digital gold. This was the government officially saying, hey, Bitcoin is a big opportunity for us, a tool for economic muscle and national security. And the changes this order brought, they were huge. First off, it ordered all federal Bitcoin holdings to be lumped together. Different agencies wouldn't be managing their own little crypto stashes anymore. It was all going into one central pot. To manage this new digital treasure chest, the order set up new offices in the Treasury Department. That's a big commitment. And maybe the biggest deal? The order declared a new policy. The government would now try to hold on to seized Bitcoin, not just sell it off. The main exception would be if the money was legally needed to pay back victims. This was a complete flip from how they used to do things. And this executive order wasn't just about the Bitcoin they already had, it was looking ahead. It clearly pushed for looking into new ways to possibly grow these strategic reserves. One of the hottest ideas that came up was for Bitcoin-enhanced treasury bonds, or Bitcoin bonds. This showed the government wasn't just sitting back, it was getting actively involved with Bitcoin for the long haul. The secret was out. A clear, bold plan was now public, showing everyone the government wanted to be a big, long-term player in digital assets. Chapter 3. The Scale of the Dragon's Lair. Unveiling the numbers. So, with this new strategy out in the open, everyone wanted to know, just how much Bitcoin is the government actually sitting on? For years, analysts tried to guess based on seizure news and blockchain digging. But that executive order, it demanded some real answers. By April 2025, after they pulled everything together and set the new course, the US government cemented its spot as the world's biggest known government Bitcoin holder. And the numbers? They're jaw-dropping, around 198,012 Bitcoin. Back then, that massive pile was worth about $18.3 billion. To give you an idea of how big that is, this one government stash made up about 2.3% of all Bitcoin held by governments worldwide. That's a serious slice of the pie. Inside the US government's own new digital asset stockpile, Bitcoin was clearly king, making up something like 97% of its total crypto reserve. The rest was in other digital coins, mostly Ethereum and some stable coins. So they were diversifying a bit, but still super focused on Bitcoin. A really key part of that March 2025 order was the demand for a full audit and public reveal of these holdings. This was a clear break from the old days of keeping things hush-hush. The goal was to be more open, so markets and everyday people could see just how big the government's crypto game was. Just telling everyone about it had a big effect, making people realize the massive size of what used to be a quietly managed pile of assets. It confirmed what some folks already figured. Uncle Sam wasn't just dipping a toe in the Bitcoin market. He was a full-blown whale, a dragon guarding a serious digital treasure. The fallout from such a huge, openly managed stash started spreading right away. With holdings this massive, anything the US government did or didn't do with its Bitcoin could seriously shake the markets. Chapter 4. Why hoard Bitcoin? The strategic imperative. This huge policy shift, going from just selling off seized Bitcoin to creating an official strategic Bitcoin reserve, wasn't some random idea. There was solid strategic thinking behind it, an understanding of what makes Bitcoin special and how the global financial world is changing. So why would a superpower like the US decide to stockpile digital money like this? Well, for starters, Bitcoin's own unique features were a big reason. That built-in scarcity, only 21 million coins ever, makes it attractive as a way to store value, kind of like gold has been for ages. In that executive order, the US government even called out Bitcoin's security and its rising status as digital gold. That tells you they believe it can hold and grow wealth over time. This wasn't just about grabbing assets from criminals anymore, it was about seeing the real basic value and potential of Bitcoin itself. Then there's global competition. That was a big factor. US officials talked about how Bitcoin was important for keeping America at the top, economically speaking. They especially talked about this in relation to other big players like China, which, by the way, is also thought to have a lot of Bitcoin, though they're much quieter and less clear about it. So by creating its own open and strategic reserve, the US wanted to lock down its spot in the fast-growing digital asset world, making sure it didn't get left in the dust as everything goes digital. Another key reason? Diversification. Adding Bitcoin to the country's reserves helps spread out the government's assets beyond the usual stuff like regular money, gold, and bonds. Spreading things out like this can protect against different economic problems, like if the dollar loses value or inflation goes wild. With the global economy being so unpredictable these days, adding an asset like Bitcoin, something that doesn't always move in line with traditional markets, seemed like a smart move. And beyond these basic reasons, when the US government publicly says it's holding Bitcoin, that sends a huge message to markets here and around the world. It shows big-time confidence that Bitcoin is a legit asset. That kind of stamp of approval from the world's biggest economy, it can push other big institutions, companies, and even other countries to get more involved, making Bitcoin an even more solid part of the global financial setup. And that clever idea for Bitcoin-enhanced treasury bonds, those Bitcoin bonds, really shows this strategic, forward-looking thinking. The idea, pushed by groups like the Bitcoin Policy Institute, was to issue a ton of these bonds, maybe even $2 trillion worth. A slice of that money, say 10%, would go to buy more Bitcoin for the strategic reserve, and the rest would pay for normal government stuff. These Bitcoin bonds would give investors something new, the safety of a US Treasury bond plus a chance to cash in if Bitcoin does well. For the government, this could mean borrowing money cheaper because the chance to get some Bitcoin exposure might draw in more investors willing to give better rates. It's a pretty smart way to mix the safety of old-school finance with the growth potential of crypto, all while boosting the nation's Bitcoin stash without taxpayers having to foot the bill for the Bitcoin part right away. Chapter 5: Shockwaves and Strategy: Implications for Markets and Global Power. Creating the US Strategic Bitcoin Reserve and the massive amount of Bitcoin now openly managed, that was never going to fly under the radar in the financial world. The effects started spreading almost instantly, sending tremors through crypto markets and pointing to a huge change in America's long-term money strategy and how it flexes its global power. For the crypto markets, the impact hit from a few different angles. The first announcement, and then being open about the size of the US stash, led to more ups and downs and a lot of guessing. Traders and investors were all trying to figure out what it all meant. Would the government start buying more? Would it use its stash to control prices? Just having such a huge government-backed player making a long-term Bitcoin commitment automatically changed how the market works. One of the biggest effects was that there'd likely be less government selling pressure on the market. For years, the market had to deal with the government selling off seized Bitcoin every now and then. Now, with the new Hoard policy, a big chunk of potential Bitcoin supply was basically off the table, at least for a while. In theory, that could help Bitcoin's price in the long run. More generally, the US government's move gave Bitcoin a huge new dose of legitimacy. When the world's top economy officially calls something a strategic reserve asset, it really changes how people see it. It's a loud signal that Bitcoin isn't just some niche thing anymore. It's being looked at as a serious piece of the global financial system. This could also set an example for the world. Other countries, seeing the US make such a big move, might speed up their own digital asset plans or even start their own strategic Bitcoin reserves. Imagine that, a new kind of global competition, but for digital scarcity. Aside from the direct market effects, this policy change has huge implications for America's overall money game plan. Treating Bitcoin like a strategic reserve could change how the country handles its money policy, national security, and even how it deals with international finance. It sets up the US to possibly cash in if Bitcoin's price goes up over the long haul, basically adding a new, fast-growing asset to the country's books. This digital cash could then be used as a bargaining chip in global talks, to fund projects at home, or as a safety net during tough economic times. Basically, creating this strategic Bitcoin reserve is America betting on the future of money and power. It's admitting that digital assets are going to be a bigger and bigger deal in the 21st century global economy. By being proactive and strategic, the US is trying to lock in its leadership role as things change, making sure it stays ahead in financial innovation and keeps its influence, especially in a world where economic power is all tangled up with tech skills and control over these new kinds of assets. This isn't just about stacking coins, it's about strategically setting up the nation for a future where digital money could be just as powerful as the regular kind. Chapter 6: The Risks and the Road Ahead. Now, this move to create a strategic Bitcoin reserve is definitely bold, and it could be a game changer, but it's not all smooth sailing. there are some serious risks and challenges. Handling a multi-billion-dollar pile of digital cash, especially something as big as Bitcoin, brings a whole new bunch of headaches for the US government. One of the biggest, right off the bat worries, cybersecurity. Bitcoin, by its very nature, is like digital cash. Whoever has the private keys owns it. Simple as that. Keeping hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin safe from super smart hackers, cyber attacks, or even threats from the inside, that takes top-notch security and never letting your guard down. The government would need the best security imaginable, or even invent new ways to protect this digital treasure. If they got seriously hacked, it wouldn't just be a financial loss, it'd be a huge hit to America's reputation and could throw markets into chaos. Then you've got risks to market stability. Sure, the plan now is to hold. But what if the government had to suddenly sell off a big chunk of its reserves? Or if people thought they were fumbling the management of these assets? That could cause prices to crash and create widespread panic in the crypto markets. Their Bitcoin pile is so big that anything the US government does, or is even rumored to be doing, can seriously move the markets. This means they need to be super careful, open, and predictable in how they talk about it. Screwing up policy, or even just people thinking it's being mismanaged, could destroy public trust and cause bad market reactions. How this strategic Bitcoin reserve is run, the checks and balances from those new treasury offices, and sticking to open rules, all that is absolutely crucial. Every decision, when to maybe buy more, how to handle what they've got, and any future ideas for using it, will be watched like a hawk by the public, the financial world, and everyone internationally. Looking ahead, they'll need serious skill and foresight to handle these risks. Those new offices in the Treasury, they've got a massive job on their hands. They don't just have to protect these assets, they also need to come up with long-term plans for managing them that fit the country's goals, keep markets stable, and keep the public confident. This means figuring out the best way to store the Bitcoin, whether it's all in one place, spread out, or some mix, and setting clear rules for any future buying or selling, even if selling seems unlikely right now with the hold policy. Whether this whole strategic shift works out will really depend on how strong the system they build around this national digital treasure is. The experiment is underway, and you better believe the whole world is watching to see how the US handles its new job as a strategic Bitcoin superpower. So the US government deciding to switch its Bitcoin from stuff it occasionally auctioned off to a strategically managed strategic Bitcoin reserve? That's pretty historic. It's a loud and clear sign that the US isn't just saying Bitcoin exists, it's actively using it as part of its financial and economic game plan for what's next. This shift from just selling it off to actively collecting and managing it is changing how people at the very top think about cryptocurrency. What we've really exposed here today isn't just a coin count. It's the blueprint for America's new take on digital assets. One where Bitcoin's rarity and security aren't just interesting quirks, but sources of real, lasting value like digital gold. The effects are huge, impacting everything from crypto market stability and where they're headed, to the global balance of economic power, and even what we consider a national reserve asset in this century. The US is making a calculated gamble that this digital stash will be a key part of its strength for years to come. This isn't just about government money, it's about the future of money, period. What are your thoughts on the US government becoming a strategic Bitcoin holder? Does this make you more bullish on the future of digital assets, or does it raise new concerns? I'd love to hear your perspective down in the comments below. And if you want to stay on top of how crypto and new financial tech are changing our world, definitely hit that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you don't miss what we've got coming up next. Thanks for tuning in.